Aunt Millie, we are here today talking about World War II. So we're going to ask you a few questions, and if you can just answer, we'd appreciate it. If you can state your full name.
Millie Kopmann.
Great.
And Mom, where were you born?
Augusta, Missouri.
What year were you born?
June the 4th, 1919.
1919. And how many were in your family?
Oh,
How many children were in your family?
2.
5.
When she was born, there was 2 sisters.
And what were there a total of how many girls in your family?
5.
And did you have any brothers?
No.
So you had no brothers that went to war. Do you know what you were doing at the start of the war? When the war started? Do you know what you were doing when you heard the war started?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Aunt Dottie?
Yes,
Okay.
I remember.
Okay, state your full name first.
Dorothy Bolzenius, Dorothy Koenen,
And when were you born?
October 28, 1922.
And you and Millie are sisters.
Yes, we are.
And where do you rank in the family?
I'm the 4th girl.
Okay. And do you remember what happened when the war started?
Yes, I do. I was at Marge Marquardt now, her house, and she had a family of 6 brothers, and there was a bunch of boys there too. And we heard that on the radio, and everybody was glued to the radio that afternoon. And that night we went to a dance in Augusta, Missouri, and there was more people crying. All the older people, the mothers, and they were all crying, and they were playing real sentimental pieces all night, but we still enjoyed ourselves because we all liked to dance.
And where did you dance? Where was that? Do you remember?
Legion Hall in Augusta, Missouri.
Legion Hall in Augusta, okay.
Did you have to follow because of the war?
Oh, we were really strict with all our coupons. We had coupons for food and for sugar, and that was really a big thing for the people on the farm because we canned all our stuff and made jellies and everything, and we had to really be careful with that. And then we had gas coupons. We only got so many a month. I forgot how much we got, and we had coffee. And there was a lot of things that were rationing. We call that rationing.
Rationing. And Millie, do you remember having to ration things when you were in downtown St. Louis during the war?
Food.
Having what?
Food.
To ration things?
Oh, yeah, a lot of things were rationed. Shoes were rationed, purses were rationed,
Food.
all kinds of things.
I understand that the bridge going into Washington from Augusta, I understand that there was like a toll if you drove across. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And do you remember the charges? What it cost?
20 cents per person in a car.
75 cents for a car, and every passenger was 20 cents extra. And when you walked across, it was 25 cents for round trip. And we walked across that many a time because I worked in Washington. And we'd walk across the bridge, and then our folks, Marge's family or some other friends of mine, they'd pick us up on the other side. And they saved that money because it was too expensive because nobody was making much money. We was making 40 cents an hour at the shoe factory.
Now, how did your life change because of the war?
It has changed quite a bit, I mean, slowly. But at first it was kind of bad. Well, the servicemen all came home, and I got married about 6 months after the war. And to find stuff, you couldn't find anything. You couldn't find no stoves or refrigerators or anything. And we didn't have any. But I think I'd give that to Annie before I think she's got that down.
Okay. And Millie, how were people treated differently because of their race or their heritage in the area that you lived at the time? Were people treated differently because of their race or heritage because of the war?
Well, I don't really, couldn't tell.
Okay, and Dottie, can you remember anything?
No, they weren't too kind to the 4Fs guys. They didn't make it. They always call them 4Fers.
Explain the 4F.
Yeah,
What is a 4F?
Well, they didn't make the grade on their health and different things. I don't remember what they all had.
They were not into the service.
They were
exempt.
They were exempt. They call them 4Fs.
And Millie, what did people do for entertainment during the war? What did you do?
We go to the show. We go once in a while for a little party.
Did they have dances?
Yes, we had dances.
And I know in the past you've talked about when the servicemen came in downtown St. Louis, that a lot of times you would always like make them feel good and invite them to dances. Is that right?
At the beauty shop.
I remember.
The beauty shop, when they had their convention downtown, they'd have it. And I'd go from Washington to St. Louis, and we met a lot of nice guys. And they were always glad to have somebody to talk to.
And what did people, the general people, what did they think about the enemy?
Well, they didn't care for the Germans at all. They sure did. They didn't like Hitler at all. And the military men that were there, I don't know, like my husband, he sure didn't care for Hitler.
Now, being of German heritage so long ago, you being so far removed from that, people didn't treat you any differently, did they?
No, they didn't treat us any different.
Okay. And Millie, do you remember Pearl Harbor Day?
Yes.
What can you tell us about that?
We worked as usual, and we got off, we heard about it, and we didn't realize how bad it was.
Yeah, I guess I was still at home, on the farm when that happened, because I wasn't working in Washington at that time yet. But then we had a radio, but we didn't listen to that very much. That was just occasionally, not like they do now. Well, nowadays they got the TV and everything, and you can keep up with everything. But that was a terrible thing to happen to us.
And V-Day, what can you tell us about V-Day?
I told Annie all about that already. She's got that all down. I said,
okay.
We had to drive all around town to find some beer that night. We couldn't find no beer, and we finally found some, and I stayed at home, but she went downtown and she danced on the street, and they took a piano out of one of the...
Who did?
The guys downtown. They took a piano out of...
Down in Washington?
Yeah, on the main drag down there, and they put a piano outside, and they were playing piano all night long and dancing.
Dancing in the streets.
Yeah,
celebrating.
Celebrating.
And Millie, in St. Louis, when V-Day came, can you tell me about your experience?
I don't remember what we really did. I can't remember.
And Dottie, where did you work during the war?
I was at home. I was on the farm. I worked, helped my dad, and did a lot of work for some of the neighbors too. And
Domestic help, like cleaning and
cooking and cleaning and helping out in the fields, helping haul hay and everything. I was like a boy, because my dad and mom didn't have no boys, and we had to do everything. Worked hard.
Dottie, how did you meet your husband? And tell us what his name was.
My husband's name is Albert Bolzenius, or was Albert Bolzenius. And I was working with his sister, Ruth Bolzenius, and she went to be a nun. And we were working one day, and she said, "Oh, my brother's coming home from the army, and he's coming home this weekend." So that weekend, we went to the dance I did with some of the girls, and he was there too. And I walked by, there was a bunch of guys standing. I walked by there, and I just called him by name. I said, "Hi, Albert." And he was kind of shocked, and he said hi to me, and didn't take long. He followed me, and he asked me to dance, and from that time on, we were starting to date, and that turned out to be a couple. Then we got married in October.
Of what year?
1944, 46.
Okay, Millie, where did you work during the war, when the war started?
I worked at Garland's.
And what was Garland's? Was it a clothing shop?
No, it was a furrier shop.
And where was it at?
It was on 6th and 6th and Delmar,
And then in what city?
St. Louis, Missouri.
In the downtown area?
Yes.
Okay, if you could tell me your full name,
Millie Koenen,
and what was your maiden name?
Millie Kopmann,
And where were you born and raised?
Augusta, Missouri.
And your parents were?
Fred and Martha Kopmann.
All right. And your grade school was Immaculate Conception? Your grade school where you went to school?
Yeah, that was.
And how many children were in your grade?
In my grade,
About?
about 8.
And can you give me any first and last names of them?
Ewald Richter.
Yeah,
Ewald Richter.
Viola
Viola who?
Strukoff,
Okay.
and
Everett Strickhoff.
Everett Strukoff, Raymond Strukoff, and
Ewald Richter. Was it Ewald Richter? Ewald Richter?
well, he was younger than I.
Okay, well that doesn't matter, that's okay.
Is it a woman? No, she was not.
And then I know you came to St. Louis when you were like 17, right?
18.
18. And then I know you met Dad when Dad is, who did you marry? What is his name? What was your husband's name?
My husband, Herbert Koenen,
And who was your fiance before Herbert?
George Boland.
And then what happened to George?
He got TB and he died.
And then when did you meet Dad? Was he in the service when you met Herb Koenen?
They were both in service.
And how did you meet Herb?
Through,
Dance or something, wasn't it?
no, through Oscar.
Oscar who?
Oscar.
Oscar Freihaut. That was your sister, Lori Freihaut, married
Yeah.
Bob Freihaut, and Bob Freihaut's brother was Oscar, and Herb Koenen was Oscar's friend. Is that how it went?
That's how it went.
And there was a party, a get-together? Can you tell me about that night?
I don't know.
Okay.